Halloween Pigs by Rita Balducci, illustrated by Doug Cushman. The wind was whistling through Oinky's little house of straw, blowing autumn right into his kitchen. Oinky sniffed. Apples, he sighed, and corn, and maybe a hint of pumpkin. His brother Pinky shook his head. No, sweet potatoes. Winky, the third brother, inhaled deeply and closed his eyes. I love October, he sighed. The three little pigs all took another deep breath. They could almost taste the good things they smelled. So there they were, trapped in Oinky's straw house. They were so hungry they could have eaten the walls. A knock at the door made the three little pigs jump. Trick or treat, called a soft voice. It's a trick, Pinky whispered. It's the wolf. But it wasn't the wolf, just a little Red Riding Hood with her basket. You should go trick-or-treating, she told them. You will get lots of goodies, and if your costumes are clever enough, the wolf will never recognize you. Oinky and Pinky looked at Winky. He always made the important decisions. Winky murmured, stroking the hair on his chinny chin. Costumes. Happy Halloween! Bellowed their wolf host, his yellow eyes gleaming. Come on in! Pinky, Winky, and Oinky had never seen so many wolves in their lives. There were old wolves and young pups, thin wolves and fat wolves, dancing wolves, chatting wolves, laughing wolves, and singing wolves. Look, Oinky whispered to Winky and Pinky. There, in the soft glow of an enormous jack-o'-lantern, was the buffet table. Delicious-smelling steam rose from the platters of food. Maybe it was the moon. Maybe it was the music. Maybe it was just pure unbridled pickishness. But what happened next was not a pretty sight. So cried Oinky, throwing himself on the sweet potato pie. Slurp, 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 slurped Winky, burying his snout in the creamed corn. Oink, 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 snorted Pinky, chomping on roast beef. The table creaked and groaned under the weight of the three pigs. The band stopped playing as the wolves stared in shock at the sight before them. Who are they? The wolves murmured to one another. Oinky, Pinky, and Winky didn't stop until they had devoured everything in sight and licked the plates as well. Their costumes were stretched tight across their fat tummies, but still they wanted more. The wolves had just begun the dunking for apples contest when the greedy trio spied the barrel full of crisp red apples. There was a mad gleam in their piggy little eyes as they dived headfirst into the barrel, splashing and kicking and sputtering as they sank their teeth into every apple floating inside. When Winky dunked Pinky's head underwater in order to reach a particularly big, juicy apple, the wolves began to mutter among themselves. How rude, they gasped. Pop! The seam down the back of Winky's pants began to split. Out sprang his curly tail, but nothing would stop him now. A row of banana cream pies were laid out invitingly on another table, ready for the pie-eating contest. Oinky bounded across the floor, all his chinny chins jiggling. He landed on one end of the table, and the pies flew through the room like frisbees. Winky and Pinky leaped into the air to catch them in their mouths. Who invited them? The wolves huffed to one another. Boing! Oinky's belly burst through his costume, but he scarcely noticed. His snout twitched and his mouth began to water. The jack-o'-lantern was still glowing on the ransacked buffet table. The three little pigs weren't finished yet. Seeds flew as Oinky, Winky, and Pinky attacked the pumpkin. Gooey shreds of orange pumpkin pulp stuck to their fur as they feasted on the remains of the jack-o'-lantern. Disgusting! Cried the aghast wolves. Plink! The last few stitches around Pinky's pokey middle gave way. His costume was hanging on by mere threads. Finally, there was no more food inside. The pigs licked their fingers, smacked their lips. A great party, said Oinky, slapping a startled wolf on the back. Agreed Winky, picking his teeth. What do you say we do this again next Halloween? Asked Pinky, a greedy gleam in his piggy little eyes. The wolves recoiled in horror at the suggestion. I have an idea, cried one wolf, anxious to get away from the three strange guests. Let's all go trick-or-treating. Yes, yes, chimed the other wolves, frantically rushing for the door. Let's go! Hey, good thinking, the brothers agreed as they waddled along to catch up. We could use some dessert. A full moon shone on a clearing in the woods. A hush fell over the wolves as they gathered in the circle and looked up. What's the matter with them? Oinky said impatiently to Winky. I thought we were going trick-or-treating. It's a full moon, one exasperated wolf explained. You must know what that means. But the brothers just shrugged. Time for midnight snacks? Asked Oinky, his voice full of hope. The wolves ignored him. Then, in unison, they began to howl at the moon. What a strange thing to do, the brothers exclaimed. They could be eating instead of howling. But the pigs didn't want the wolves to figure out who they really were, so they went along with the chorus. Aroo! Aroo! The wolves howled. Oink! Oink! The brothers bellowed at the top of their lungs. The wolves exchanged suspicious frowns, but they continued howling. The song got louder and louder. The wolves and the pigs all took one last deep breath for the grand finale, and burp went the three pigs. Rip went their costumes. The pigs' disguise all torn apart at the exact moment. There they were, three succulent, fattened little pokers surrounded by hungry wolves. Suddenly, a deep voice shouted, Trick or treat! It's the huntsman! Run for your life! Yelled the wolves. And with a great huffing and puffing, they were gone. Oinky, Winky, and Pinky hiccuped in relief as the huntsman pulled back his cap to show that he was really Little Red Riding Hood. Are you all right? She asked her friends as they pounced on her basket of goodies. We just need a little refreshment after our terrible ordeal. Oinky mumbled through a mouthful of chocolate. And once the candy in Little Red Riding Hood's basket was gone, the three little pigs ran wee, 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 wee all the way home.